All right, team, welcome. So today, we're going to do a real deep dive into the IEP, the Individualized Education Plan. This is all about going beyond the paperwork. It's about moving from plan to actual practice. How do we strengthen our process? How do we challenge our own assumptions? And really, at the end of the day, how do we make sure that every single student we work with gets the best possible chance to truly thrive?
So let's start right here. This quote from the ministry, this isn't just some nice-sounding guideline, right? This is our mission. It is the absolute core, the why behind everything we do. Every assessment, every single meeting, every IEP we put together. This is the bar we set for ourselves. Think of it as our North Star, guiding us through all the complexities of this work.
Okay, so here's a quick look at where we're headed. We'll start with that mission and the legal stuff we have to know. Then we'll get into the principles and mindsets for our practice, and we'll even tackle our own biases. After that, we'll look at the IEP in action and wrap up with some real concrete next steps we can take together. Sound good?
All right, first up, the legal and ethical foundation. These are our non-negotiables. And let's be clear, this isn't about ticking boxes or filling out forms. This is about the fundamental rights of our students and our absolute professional duty to protect and uphold them. This is so important to remember. We all work within the Education Act. That's our day-to-day framework. But the Ontario Human Rights Code, that trumps everything. It's the ultimate authority. So what does that mean for us? It means every single decision we make has to pass through a human rights filter first. It puts the focus exactly where it needs to be, on providing an education that's accessible and free from discrimination for every single student.
And that leads us right into the duty to accommodate. Now, this isn't something we just wait to be asked for. It's proactive. We have a legal obligation to meet the needs of our students with disabilities, right up to the point of undue hardship. But look at how narrowly that's defined. It's only about three things: costs, outside funding sources, and health and safety. That's it. Things like, oh, it's inconvenient, or other people might not like it, those are not, I repeat, not legal reasons to deny an accommodation.
Now look at this number, 2.7. That's how many extra months of learning a student can get in a single year just by having an effective school leader. That's huge. And yeah, the study was about principles, but the lesson for us, it's exactly the same. We are the leaders of the IEP process, and that means our commitment, our evidence-based decisions, they have the exact same power to literally accelerate a student's learning and change their trajectory.
So, now that we've got that legal foundation locked in, let's talk about how we actually build our practice on top of it. This section is all about shifting our mindset. We're moving away from just the rules we have to follow and into the principles we should live and breathe. It's about going from mere compliance to a really deep professional commitment.
I love this idea of safe spaces versus brave spaces because it's so relevant to our work. For a long time, everyone talked about creating safe spaces, and that's good. But sometimes safe can just mean comfortable. And we all know real growth, real progress, that doesn't happen when we're comfortable. For our IEP meetings to be truly effective, we need to aim for brave spaces. That means we're willing to lean into the tough conversations, with respect, of course, and have those authentic dialogues. We have to challenge each other's assumptions to get to what's truly best for the student. And then there's Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. This is such a powerful shift in thinking. Instead of waiting for a student to hit a wall and then trying to patch things up with an accommodation, UDL flips that on its head. It asks, how can we design this lesson, this environment, to be accessible for everyone right from the start? It's like building a ramp instead of adding one on later. When you design for the students who might struggle the most, you almost always end up creating a better, more flexible learning environment that helps every single kid in the room. It's totally proactive, not reactive.
All right, let's get into something that honestly takes some of that bravery we were just talking about. We need to challenge our own biases. If we want to make decisions that are genuinely objective and fair for every student, we have to be willing to look in the mirror and admit that our brains, all of our brains, take shortcuts.
So just think about this for a second. How might our unconscious biases, and we all have them, they're just mental shortcuts, how might they affect the decisions we make in an IEP? Look, having biases doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you human. It's how our brains handle an overload of information. But, and this is a big but, if we don't even acknowledge they exist, they can quietly, unintentionally creep in and influence how we see a student's needs, their potential, and what supports we think they should get.
Let's look at a classic one, authority bias. This is that tendency to just, to believe and follow what an authority figure says without really thinking it through ourselves.
how does this play out in an IEP meeting? Maybe we automatically agree with the person who has the most senior job title, or maybe even just the person who speaks the most confidently. When that happens, we risk silencing some really critical perspectives, from the classroom teacher who's with the student every day, or from the parents who know their child best. We have to make sure every voice at that table carries equal weight. Okay, and this one is huge for our line of work. It's called idiosyncratic rater bias. It's a fancy term for something pretty simple. It's when we judge a student based on our own personal, subjective idea of what success looks like instead of sticking to objective criteria. This can totally warp how we interpret assessment data or what kind of expectations we set in an IEP. We've got to constantly be checking ourselves and asking, am I using the actual evidence here, or am I just using my own personal yardstick?
Okay, so we've talked about the legal stuff, the core principles, and the mindset we need to bring to the table. Now, let's get super practical and connect all of that to the document itself, the IEP in action.
Getting these three terms straight is absolutely critical. First, you've got accommodations. Think of things like extra time or using a specific technology. These change how a student learns, but they do not change what they're expected to learn. The curriculum expectations stay the same. Then you have modified expectations. This is where we actually change what a student is expected to learn. We might reduce the number of expectations or their complexity. And finally, alternative expectations. These are for learning goals that are totally outside the Ontario curriculum, things like specific social skills or personal care routines. Being precise with this language is everything. It's the foundation of a clear, effective IEP.
And we really have to remember that the IEP isn't a one-and-done document that just gets filed away. It's a living, breathing cycle. It's a process. You see it right here. We gather information, we set a clear direction, we develop the plan, and notice that key part, with the student and family. Then we implement it, and maybe most importantly, we review and update it. It's this constant loop of trying things, learning, and adjusting to meet the student's needs as they grow and change.
So, that's a lot of information. The big question is, where do we go from here? We've talked about the why, the what, and the how. So let's wrap this up by getting really clear about our collaborative next steps and how we're going to put this into practice, starting today.
So here it is, our team's action plan. These aren't just vague ideas, they're tangible things we can do, with deadlines. So this month, let's all agree to use a bias awareness checklist to review at least one current IEP. Over the next 3 months, we're going to schedule a workshop to get deeper into UDL strategies. By the end of the semester, let's work together to create our own Brave Spaces charter that will guide how we talk to each other in meetings. And this one is immediate. Starting with our very next IEP discussion, the first thing we do is review the student's own strengths and goals, period.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to take with you. This is really where the rubber meets the road. All of it. The laws, the principles, the paperwork, it's all for one reason, the student. So I want you to think about the very next IEP meeting you're going to be in. What is the one specific, concrete commitment you're going to make to ensure that the student's voice isn't just included, but that it's actually truly heard?